King of glory. Lord, we do pour out and praise you this morning. You are so gracious, so good. Thank you for calling us here together this morning. Help us, Lord, to focus on your word this morning. Be with Don as he brings your message. And Lord, help us to walk more closely with you. We thank you just for being the God that you are. Lord, we can never thank you enough. We just praise you. We look to you even now. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All right. Well, I talked to Toby this morning, and he said there's nobody hated a short sermon. He's heard me preach before, so I shortened it up a little bit. Dave, see, every once in a while Dave goes away, and sometimes I get to fill in for him, so I start working real early, so I get a lot of material. So maybe we're okay now. Okay. We're going to speak about the way of Cain. We're going to talk about Cain. Cain's kind of a depressing person. How many people do you know that are named Jezebel? I don't know too many. Not too many Ahabs, a few. And there's some Cains maybe, but not too many. Because, Cain, he doesn't have the best reputation in the world. He was a murderer. God rejected his offering. He departed from the Lord. And then, best of all, you got the mark of Cain. What was the mark of Cain? Well, we're not going to talk about that. We'll talk about it a little bit, but not too much. But Cain. Where are my glasses here? Okay. Today, we're going to look at Cain. We're going to look at his religion. We're going to look at his character. And we're looking at his destiny, or where his character and his religion took him. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time on God's religion, God's character, and what his character led him to do. And then last of all, we're going to think about our choice and what we have to decide to do. Okay, so Genesis chapter 4, verse 1. If you want to turn there, or you can just follow along, it'll be on the screen. It says in Genesis chapter 4, in verse 1, it says, "And Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord." Now, this is the firstborn son, Cain. Now, Adam was created, but Cain is the firstborn. And Eve says something here. She says, I have gotten a man from the Lord. And Cain means, it's a play on gotten, okay? It means kind of gotten. I received it from the Lord. And so he's the firstborn. And remember, in Genesis chapter 3, God says that the seed of the woman would bruise Satan's head. So she's probably thinking, here he is. Here is the one who's going to bruise Satan's head. And she probably had great expectations. Let me ask you this. In your family, look at your expectations. You got the oldest in the family, and then you got, like a big family like mine, there's 11 kids. You just kind of go down the line. Most families have pictures of the first kid, lots of pictures. By the time you get to the last one, you haven't taken many pictures. And how much do we expect out of the last child compared to the first child? I expect more out of you. Yeah, that's the youngest, Cain, we have, he's the firstborn. Great expectations for Cain. And then, of course, you have in verse 2, it says that she again bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. Okay, so it says what they did. Cain was a keeper of sheep, or Abel was a keeper of sheep, and Cain was a tiller of the ground. Boy, this is making a lot of noise. So who are you? If I ask you, okay, tell me about yourself. What are you going to tell me? What do? You know, first thing, well, you might say, well, I'm the son of, I'm in this family. It might be your family relation, this is my relative. Who I am, I'm a dad, I'm a parent, or I'm a son. Or you might say, your profession. That's who I am. Okay, your identity. That's something that we just tend to do. We just tend to do that. To think of who we are by what we do. And in the second verse of the whole Bible, or chapter 4, it says, and she again bare her brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, and Cain was a tiller of the ground. So, Cain's the firstborn. He's the one that produces food. Okay? So, hey, this guy's important. He's the firstborn. We got great expectations from him. He's the one who's out there working, raising crops so that we can eat. There's a lot of stuff about Cain that we're looking to him. We expect something out of him. Verse 3, it said we're to look at his offering, his religion. And in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. Wow, Cain is religious. He brings something to the Lord. He's thinking about it. Okay? God, I'm going to bring an offering to him. Not bad. Religion. Okay? He's got religion here. It says, and Abel, he also brought of the firstling of his flocks, and of the fat thereof. So Cain brings an offering, and then this younger guy, Abel, that we don't expect much from, maybe Abel had some issues. Maybe he was like his younger brother in the parable of the prodigal son. But he says he brought of the firstling of his flock and of the fat thereof. And then it says in the last part of that verse, and the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering. So Abel, his offering was respected. Cain's was rejected. Now, if you're the firstborn, if you're important, you are somebody, everybody's looking to you as being a leader, and now all of a sudden you bring your offering, Cain, and Abel brings his offering, and God totally rejects yours. And he accepts Abel's. How's that going to affect you? We see how it affected Cain. Now, let's look at his offering a minute. What was Cain's offering? It was the fruit of the ground. It was probably wheat, might have been grapes, zucchini, cucumbers. It was nice. It was clean. It was just, this is good stuff. And Abel, what does he bring? He goes and kills a lamb. He kills some of the flock. It's messy. It's bloody. It's look at that. Look at that mess. All your hands are covered with blood. And ooh. But there's pain. There's suffering. This animal is suffering. You got Cain's offering. You got Abel's offering. God rejects Cain's, and he takes and accepts Abel's. We're going to get into this. Abel's offering was substitutionary. Cain's offering was a payment. What do you think they did? Do you think they had money at that time? I'm going to pay you. Here's a chicken. Here's your chickens. Here's this, there's that, here's some eggs, whatever. I'm paying God. Abel is substitutionary. Something had to suffer because of my sin. So, Cain's religious. A lot of people that that end up turning away from God, they start out religious. They start out doing some things for God. And then they turn away. I remember in college, I remember meeting a guy from a year, he was a year ahead of me, and I saw him in college, and I told him, hey, I got saved. And he said, oh, I tried that once. Yeah, that was okay, you know. I tried it once. It was, he had some religion. I don't know exactly what he had. But he said, I tried it, but that wasn't for me. That wasn't something for me. So, have you ever had some person say this to you? I tried to live right. I tried to do what God wanted me to do, and what did it get me? What happened? I got pain. I got sorrow. I tried to live for God. And look at all the trouble I'm in. Okay, this is the difference. Some of you rent, or maybe I should go to, you get a paycheck. You get a paycheck. So when you get a paycheck, you open that up, and you say, here's my pay. Oh, thank you so much. I got this paycheck. Oh, he's so, the boss is so great. He gave me this money. Oh, that's just so wonderful. Now you go. What do you say? That's all I got. I earned it. I earned it. He owed me. He owed me. That's Cain's religion. I'm paying you, God. Now you owe me. Okay, I want to see something from you. And then when God doesn't come through for them, they say, hey, listen, I paid, and you didn't come through for me. But Abel's offering was substitutionary. So there's 4 questions. 4 questions we need to ask ourselves about this. 1, where did they get the idea that they needed to make an offering? Number 2, why was Cain's offering rejected, which we talked about? And why was Abel's accepted? And how did they know that it was accepted or rejected? Okay, let's just look at this. Okay, where did they get the idea that they needed an offering? In Genesis chapter 3, verse 21, it says, on Adam and also to his wife did the Lord make coats of skins and clothe them. You see, they were naked. They were naked. But they were always naked. They had been, he had created them, they were naked. But then they sinned, and they're hiding, they're putting on fig leaves, and God says, where are you? And then Adam says, well, we heard your voice and we hid, and because we were naked. Well, you were always naked. What's the difference? The difference was now they had something to hide. They had sinned against God. They weren't perfect anymore. They had this flaw. Do you ever have a flaw? Especially a teenager, you get right before the prom where you get a big zit right here, you want to hide it, It's a flaw. So you hide flaws. And so they hid from God. They had to hide what they were. And now they have fig leaves, and now they're hiding from God, and they're hiding from one another. So, but God took, and he went, and he killed some animals, and he clothed them so that their nakedness would be clothed. So there's a thing. But also notice about Cain's offering. In Genesis chapter 3, verse 17, it says, and Adam, he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it, cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. Here you got the cursed ground, and he's bringing something from the cursed ground. Okay? And then Abel's offering, it talks about it in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 4. It says, why was Abel's accepted? It was because it was by faith. In Hebrews 11, verse 4, it says, by faith Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, and by it he being dead yet speaketh. So Cain offered his sacrifice by faith. You see, the sacrifice took his place. The sacrifice was punished so that he wouldn't have to suffer for sin. In Hebrews chapter 9, verse 22, it says, "And almost all things are by the law purged with blood." It was a bloody sacrifice. "And without the shedding of blood there is no remission." So, it has to be a bloody sacrifice. Back to Genesis chapter 4, verse 4, it says, "And Abel, he also brought the firstlings of the flock and of the fat thereof. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and his offering." Okay, now notice what it says. Now, this is the thing. In the Bible, take time to read it very closely. Because all these little words, there's just little words in there, and they explain so much. It says here, he says that he took of the firstlings of the flock. He took the firstborn. Now we know in the rest of the Bible, God told Moses, take the firstborn. It had to be the firstborn and sacrifice it. And then he says, "and of the fat thereof." And in Leviticus, over and over, the offerings, it says you take the fat thereof. Because that's prescribed by God. God gives command on how to approach him. And I think that's key to understanding this, that God had instructed them what to do. But Cain, since he was the big cheese, decided, I'm going to do it my way, nice, clean. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to go, after all, I'm Cain. So, but he said, took the fat thereof, and of course we can read Leviticus chapter 9, talks about offering of sin atonement. At the very end, it says in the last part of the verse, as the Lord commanded. And then in Leviticus 9:10, it says, "But the fat and the kidneys and the caul above the liver of the skin offering he burned upon the altar, as the Lord commanded." So I think that they were instructed. But Cain did it his way. He's a farmer, and this is what he did. He was this expression of himself. He was preeminent. And I think most of all, he had pride. He was like Saul, who went and offered something because he was the king. Uzziah did the same thing. Different people had done this. Okay, Genesis chapter 4, verse 5. "But Cain's offering was rejected. But on Cain and his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell." How do they know if it was accepted? What do you think? When I was a kid, we had Sunday school lessons where we had teaching, and so we had to draw pictures. So we drew a picture of Cain and Abel, and Abel's smoke just went up. Cain's smoke went up and went to the side. That's how they knew. I don't know. We really don't know how they knew, but I think there's so many places in the Bible where it says, or at least seven places, where God answered by fire. 7 times. Abraham in Genesis chapter 15, a burning, smoking furnace, when he made an offering. Moses and Aaron in Leviticus chapter 9, they made an offering and fire came down and burned it up. We all know about that. There's other places, Manoah, Gideon, David. We got a verse here in when David was going to put where the temple was going to be, he bought a piece of ground. But in 1 Chronicles chapter 21, verse 24, it says, "And King David said unto Ornan, Nay, but I will verily buy it for full price, for I will not take that which is thine for the Lord, nor offer burnt offerings without cost." So David gave to Ornan for the place 600 shekels of gold by weight. And David built there an altar unto the Lord, and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings, and called upon the Lord. And he answered him from heaven by fire upon the altar of burnt offering. So fire came down, boom, and burned up the sacrifice. We all know about Elijah and him in the Mount Carmel. It says, the God that answers by fire, let him be God. I don't know for sure, but they certainly knew it was rejected and it was accepted. So why not? I mean, this is the first offering. Fire comes down from heaven, burns it up, and Cain's mad. Cain gets mad. So, verse 5, Genesis 4:5, it says, but unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth. He was angry, and his countenance fell. He was proud. I mean, after all, he was the firstborn, and his offering was rejected. Abel's is accepted. So what's he do? What do all proud people do? What do we do? What do we do when we're stuck? When we're rejected? You. You know, we get anger. Cain gets angry. Look at, people that have rap songs. You know, one thing about that culture of the gangs and that is one thing you don't want to do is disrespect somebody. You know, he disrespects. How many people do you think are killed in the streets of Chicago because somebody felt like they were disrespected? How many times have you struck out because someone disrespected you? Ain't gonna do that to me. I'll shut it down. He got angry. Disrespect. He was proud. So, he had an anger problem. And it says his face fell. You know what? I thought I hid my emotions, but you can ask my wife, you can ask my daughter. I don't do very good at hiding my emotions. I thought I did, but it just seems to show up on my face. And I do try to hide it, but it just doesn't work. And Cain, it didn't work for him either. His face fell, and he was mad. He had an anger problem. But God dealt with him. God, that's how God deals with you. He asks you questions. Maybe you should take time to ask yourself those questions and think about. He says, in Cain, Adam and Eve, what did he do when they sinned? He asked them 4 questions. He said, where are you? They're hiding. They should have said, why am I hiding from God? It's because of their sin. And he said, who told you that you were naked? I'm naked because I've got sin. And hast thou eaten of the tree where I commanded that they shouldn't eat of it? And what have you done? We should ask ourselves, what have we done in relationship to God? God asked Cain, he said, why are you angry? They only asked, where is Abel thy brother? He asked, what have you done? So, in Genesis chapter 4, verse 6, it says, and the Lord said unto Cain, why art thou wroth, and why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. Now that lieth, it means, the Hebrew means crouching. He's crouching. Okay? He's crouching at the door. And real quick, let me also add something here. No, we're not going to cover it, but he says the door. What was that all about? Did you notice that? Probably didn't notice that. He's lying at the door. Why does it say door? Well, we know in Moses, when Moses met with God, he met him at the door of the tabernacle. Exodus chapter 33, verse 9 and 10. Moses is talking to God. It's at the door. It's at the door. And they're meeting, Cain is meeting with God at the door. But their sin is lying at the door. And God says to him, unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. So, he's angry. And who's he angry with? Who's he angry with? He's angry with Abel? No, he's angry with God. God is the one who rejected his own. And he's mad. Abel just happens to be close by. And that anger is in there. You ever get angry? You ever have a fight with your wife or somebody close to you? And you get angry, and all of a sudden that anger starts to build up. It's just building up in you, and you're angry. And all of a sudden your face turns real red, and all of a sudden, boom, you let it go. And you start saying things, and you can't believe you're saying these things out of your mouth. It's just coming out. And it's just that anger is just, sin lies at the door, and then it's crouching. And then all of a sudden that anger just goes up. Let's go. I got a little illustration. I think we'll see how it works here. I don't know. Never done this before. Little answer. Little thing about anger. You think you got it under control. Everything's okay. You see it? You see anger out here? You see it? It's hiding. It's crouching. There it is. You ever had that? You ever done it to your wife, your kids? It's lying, it's crouching at the door. It comes up out of nowhere. And you know what it does? It destroys. It tears down. And now all of a sudden you got to take years sometimes, to correct that sin that just lie there. And all of a sudden it rose up. So, he had an anger problem. His character he was probably proud. He had anger problems. He had anger issues. But God talks to him. He says, hey, it's crouching at the door. You need to control it. So, verse 8. Genesis 4:8. It says, I think I skipped over, but 4:8 it says, and Cain talked with Abel's brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up like that tiger. Rose up against Abel. He was disrespected. God rejected it, and now he's going to let that fury go. He rose up against Abel, his brother, and slew him. And the Lord said unto Cain, where is Abel thy brother? Where's Abel? I don't know. Look at his answer. This is classic. Is this classic or what? He says, and the Lord said to Cain, where is Abel thy brother? He says, I know not. Have you ever sinned and get caught? What do? You ever tempted to lie about it? Well, it was, I don't know. He said, where's Abel your brother? I don't know. And then this is classic. Am I my brother's keeper? Oh, not only does he lie, he's a smart one. Now, we've got teenagers in here, so. But have you ever experienced that? All of a sudden, these beautiful kids that grow up, and then they learn the art of sarcasm. And they tell you stuff, Am I my brother's? I didn't know it was my turn to watch it. Isn't that what he's doing? Am I my brother's keeper? He's sarcastic to the Lord. He lies out now to the Lord. So, his character. He was unloving. Cain was unloving. In 1 John chapter 3, verse 11, for this is the message we have heard from the beginning, that we should love one another, not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, and slew his brother. And wherefore slew he him? Because his own works were evil and his brother's righteous. He was not loving. Do you love people around you? Or do you ever say, I hate being around those people? Is there love in your heart? What about this character of Cain? In Genesis 4, verse 10. And he said, "What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth from the ground." It's crying. What is it crying? What's it crying? It's crying justice. When somebody does you wrong, when somebody really does you wrong, what do you cry? Justice. Justice. We need justice. It is crying to God, "Avenge me. Do justice. I've been violated." And it cries out. Cain's judgment. So, we gotta move on because I know, even though I didn't really hear this stuff, but I don't want to go too far. Okay, so, he says, "Now thou art cursed from the earth, which God hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. And Cain said unto the Lord, My punishment is greater than I can bear." So God punished him. He says, "You're going to be a fugitive and a vagabond." And so what does Cain say? Does he say, "Oh, I'm sorry about Abel"? No, he thinks about himself. He is self-absorbed. Okay? Self-absorbed. What about me? And so he says, "My punishment is greater than I can bear." But what stressed him the most? Look at Genesis 4:14. "Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from thy face, from the face of the earth, and from thy face I shall be hid. And I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me." Now notice, he says two things. He said, "I shall be driven out from the face of the earth, and from thy face I shall be hid." But notice the order. Whenever you say something, you always tend to put it in order. What's important first and less important second. Him being away from the earth, that's what was precious to him. It was more important than being in the presence of God. So he did that. Okay, so Cain was angry. God came and talked to him. He says, "If you do well, shall thou be accepted." But he was unteachable. He was unloving. He murdered his brother. He covered it up by lying. And then he was sarcastic about it. He was self-absorbed. And in verse 4:16, it says, "And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod, east of Eden." So what he did is he left God's presence, and it says that he settled in the land of Nod. So God says you're going to be a vagabond and a fugitive, but he goes out and he built a city, but it's from the presence of the Lord. So he's settled, but he's supposed to be a wanderer. But what is he wandering about? We have DirecTV. You ever see those commercials? We're settlers. That's what we do. We just settle. Cain settled. He was happy. He settled to be away from the presence of God. I'm going to live my life without God in my presence. I will settle that way. And that's what Cain does. He settles. And you know what the land of Nod is? We'll get here. And he's in the land of Nod. There's civilization there's science, there's metallurgy, there's careers, there's arts. You talk about the rest of the chapter. But he did not have God. And so he's there, but he's out of God's presence. And that's why some of you, especially young people, you think, "Oh, if I get this job, I'll be happy." No. Oh, maybe another job. Or if I get this relationship, I'll be happy. You get it, and you're still wandering. That didn't do it. And you just keep wandering. Because God's who you're really looking for. But it's the land of Nod, and the land of Nod means wandering. You're wandering in it. So, but God, let's look at God real quick. God's religion, his character, and where it led him. God's religion was substitutionary sacrifice. Someone else paid the price for them. So, his character, let's look at God's character. After God rejects Cain's offering, he comes to him. First, I think he told Cain what to do. Then afterwards, he says, comes to Cain and he says, listen, don't, if you do what's right, God will be accepted. Cain didn't listen. And after Cain murders Abel, he doesn't go to kill him, but he talks to him. He tries to get him to confess, but he doesn't. And then after he judges Cain, he preserves him with a mark. You see, the mark of Cain, don't worry about the mark of Cain. The mark of Cain was grace. He was supposed to be killed, but God put a mark on him, not to condemn him, but to save him. It was to save him. Because God, that's God's character. He is so long-suffering. He put up with Cain. He put up with him. He put up with him. But he tried to reach out. And Cain just said, no, I don't want anything to do with you. So it says that this is God's character. Where does God's character lead him? Philippians chapter 2, verse 5. Let this mind be in you, which also was in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. And being found in the fashion as a man, he humbled himself, and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. God's character is grace. And he's so gracious that he will become a man and die for Cain's sin. Genesis 4:14, behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face I shall be hid. And I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that everyone who findeth me shall slay me. Wait a minute. In Matthew chapter 8, verse 20, it says, Jesus saith unto him, the foxes have holes, and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man hath not where to lay his head. Jesus was a vagabond. He was a vagabond. Not only that, Dave covered this last week, but so maybe we won't read it so much, but the Jews sought to kill him. They said, we got to kill him. You know what? For the last part of Jesus' ministry, he had to hide. He was a fugitive. They said, if anybody knows where he's at, tell us, and we'll get him. He's a fugitive. Jesus was a fugitive. He was a vagabond in the earth. So we'll skip those verses. And it says, if you find me, you'll slay me. That's what Cain said. Okay, so who was Cain really angry at? He was angry at God. And if he could have got his hands on God, he would have killed him like he killed Abel. You know what? God became a man. He became a man, and he became vulnerable. He became killable. And when he did, the Cains of his day killed him. They killed him. But he died for Cain's sin. God was so gracious. He was proud. He was self-willed. He was angry. He didn't love. He's a liar. He's a smart aleck. But God was gracious and long-suffering with him. So who is Cain? The Bible says, all we, like sheep, have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way, and the Lord hath laid on him the iniquity of us all. We're all Cains. We're Cains, but God saved us. You know, He came for us. And let's get the picture. I think. You have that? Okay. Here we go. They start out little. It's so cute. She got into the chocolate. Did you get into chocolate? You know, it's all over her face. I didn't do it. And we laugh. That's funny. You know. Then when they get 16, you know, and they do the same thing. When they get 30, they lie. It's Cain. From birth, we're Cains. And I didn't do it. We're born speaking lies. So the choice is this. Genesis chapter 4, verse 6. It says, and the Lord said unto Cain, why art thou wroth? And And why is that countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? If thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. So God says, listen, get the sacrifice you need. Get a sacrifice. Come to Jesus. Jesus is our sacrifice. He took our place. Lay aside. God's not going to accept all your good works. They're going to be rejected. God will reject it. The thing he's going to be happy with is Jesus died for our sin, and we need to put our faith in him. So let's just take a minute, bow our heads, and think about where we are in relationship to God. You know, our own sin. What have we done? Our own anger. And let's think about how gracious God is. All through the Bible, God is gracious, and God is gracious with Cain. He's so long-suffering. And he took Cain's place. He became a vagabond. He became a fugitive, so that Cain could come back to him. He's paid the price. So don't settle in the land of Nod, in the land of wandering, out away from the presence of God. So just think about your situation. If you haven't trusted him, trust him today. And if you have trusted him, just think about what he's done for us. And just glory in the cross. And I appreciate those songs this morning. They praise the one who died for us. And we can rejoice in that. And let's rejoice in Jesus Christ. So just take a minute and think about it. Father, we do thank you for your word. And Lord, we do thank you most of all for your marvelous grace. You are so long-suffering. You are so good. Lord, that you put up with so much. And Lord, you just want us to trust in what you've done. Lord, we couldn't do it. We turned our backs. We are sheep that have gone astray. And Lord, you've laid our sin on Jesus Christ. And Lord, we just want to thank you for it and rejoice in it and give you all the praise and the glory. And we ask in Christ's name. Amen. Okay. There's that.
Hi there. If you're here first time visiting with us this week, we just would like to welcome you. And we've got some gifts out there on the front counter if you want to stop by and pick those up, and we'll hope to see you again. So we're glad to have you here. This week we've got midweek Bible study on Wednesday. So Wednesday at 7 o'clock here at church is when we'll have that. We'll have the men's Bible study Wednesday morning as well at 6:30. And then we'll have the youth group. The gathering is here at the same time as the rest of the church. It's 7 on Wednesday night. We'll also have Bible study on Exodus Friday at the Pomeroy's house in the address is somewhere around here, or maybe you can get it from Stephen over there. Anyways, so next week on the 23rd, we've got Matthew 25 Ministries coming up. So make sure you sign up for that. We've got the Operation Christmas Child Sewing Group coming up on the 28th. The church 10-year anniversary, that's a pretty big thing. We've been here for 10 years as a church, which is pretty amazing. But we're going to have you lunch on October 1st. So there's a sign-up sheet for that in the lobby if you'd like to sign up for that. The Fall Festival is coming up October 15th as well. We've done Fall Fest, we've done Spring Carnival, and this thing is just fun. It's great. I think some of you might have started coming here because of those events. So it's a really good time to I guess, kind of help out around the church and have fun with that. So there's a sign-up sheet in the foyer for like games, food, volunteers, things like that. A lot of sign-up sheets out there if you haven't noticed. We've got a ladies' dinner coming up on October 17th, and also the Christmas, Children of the World International Choir is coming November 2nd. So we won't have any midweek Bible studies during that week, but we will have them on November 2nd, which is pretty awesome. Dave also wanted me to mention that we've got a membership class, so those of you that are new members, we've got a sign-up sheet for that in the foyer as well. That'll be next week after church. And then also, if you've not gotten your picture taken yet, you better get it because the camera is going to be taken down after next week. So try to get that done as soon as possible if you haven't done that yet. And then finally, for me, from the youth group, we've got another announcement. We're going to Winter Extreme again this year. But Winter Extreme is kind of a big concert. It's like 3 days in Gatlinburg. We go down, have a good time, and there's a couple of speakers down there. So if you've got any students that would like to join us, we need a $50 deposit by October 15th as well. Same day as the Fall Festival. So that'd be a great time to give me the deposit so I can know who's going with me and who's not. So, but anyways, that is coming up as well. So if you'd like to know more about Winter Extreme, just talk to me. And Darlene, you have an announcement as well? Yeah.
Just for a minute, real quick. A lot of people have asked us, thank you for thinking of Phil and I, and please remember the peace. Still remember people in Texas and Florida. So on a personal note, this is not really what I got up here to say, but yeah, we escaped last week before that nasty lady came, and even though we lost our little house that we didn't lose completely, but we lost part of our little house that we just purchased June the 6th. We lost the porch and the carport and part of the roof. We are so blessed, so thankful. And Don was talking, and it's like I just kept thinking about that. God is so good, even in the bad stuff, that when our daughter and son-in-law went back to check, now we got a call Monday morning and said somebody needs to go over and put a tarp. And I'm thinking the roof is gone now. What good is that going to do? But folks went over and took steel and sheet metal and put over top of it. And when Marla and Joe got back, because they had escaped, they were refugees also, they said, the house is dry. It's like it can't be. She said it was raining when she called us. It's got to be wet. And she said, Mom, it's all dry. Everything's dry inside. So God is really, really good. And their house was not touched. And the only reason I can think is because they've gone back home. They have a house to go to with 6 in their own family. They've got 7 people that have stayed with them the whole time. And 2 more were coming that night for showers and air because it's 90+ degrees and 90+ humidity. So there's a lot of devastation down there. A lot of our friends still have no electricity. So the next time that our electric goes out and you want to call Duke Energy and give them a piece of your mind, think about being without it for a week. What I really got up here to say was to re-emphasize about the pictorial directory. We have been here 10 years. We have been Cross Point Church for 10 years. We've been in this building for a year, and so we've done a pictorial directory before. We've grown so, and we have so many new faces, that we need to update that. So Kendall is taking the picture. She's going to stay after church today. So if you haven't had your picture taken yet, please go back today and let Kendall take your picture, or next Sunday is the very last Sunday. If you have never filled out one of these cards that has your current name and address, if you've moved or you've changed something, please let us know that. Probably have to give more of the information to Kendall or Kathy because Phil and I are taking off to Florida again to see how bad our little place is. So we need these updated so that we can get the current address. It really helps with praying for each other. It helps us to get to know faces, because I know for Phil and I, as we've been coming back and forth, we come in and it's like, oh my gosh, there's a whole new group of people here. Where are all these people coming from? So we're glad you're here, and we want to be able to support each other and know each other, and the pictorial directory will help us. So please get your picture taken. This does not have to be just for members. If you're not a member of Cross Point, but you've been coming and you've been meeting with us, we want your picture in there. Because you're here, we want to know your face and your name and put it together. Please, thank you.
All right, let me pray and we'll be dismissed for today. Father God, just thank you so much for bringing us out here to Cross Point Church today. We do thank you for all the new faces. We have grown so much in the last few months, and it's all from you. You give the growth. And God, we're just here to, I guess, provide a service, I suppose. But ultimately, we're here for you, God. And we just thank you so much for all that you do for us. We pray that as we go on through the rest of our weeks, that you would be with us and help us to be bright shining lights in those places of darkness that we might be workers at or something like that. Just help us to bring hope in a world that's often filled with pain and anger sometimes. Just like we saw the person of Cain today, help us be a shining light and shining, just a beacon of hope for those people who might be lost and without it, God. So I thank you so much, and in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.